So let's talk about something really important. Why is it so crucial to understand different cultures? It's not just, to make life more interesting, it's actually essential for building better, stronger communities, especially in the world we all live in today.
And to kick things off, I want to share this really powerful idea from the writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Her words, they just hit the nail on the head. They perfectly frame the problem we're going to dig into today, the very real danger of seeing the world through just one super narrow lens.
So what is this danger exactly? Well, it's this trap we all can fall into, believing that a whole complex person, or even an entire country, can be boiled down to just one simple story. And a lot of the time, it's not a very positive one.
And hey, even Adichie admits she wasn't immune to this. She tells this amazing story about how she once had this single story of Mexicans. All she'd ever seen in the media was this image of the abject immigrant. But then she actually went to Mexico, and she was just floored. She saw people laughing, working, going to the market, just living their lives. And it totally shattered that one-dimensional picture in her head. She said it was a moment of shame, for sure, but also this huge, eye-opening realization.
So let's really define this. A single story is basically a narrative that gets repeated over and over and over again until it starts to feel like the only truth. But here's the thing, it's never the whole truth. It's incomplete. And what's really crucial to understand is that these stories are almost always shaped by power. It's about who gets to hold the microphone, who gets to tell the story, and who is just being described by someone else.
Okay, so that brings us to the big question, right? If we know these single stories are so limiting and honestly so harmful, what do we do about it? How can we actively start to break them down and build a richer, more complete picture of the world around us?
Well, to start answering that, we need to get on the same page with a few key ideas. We need some tools to help us navigate this super complex, interconnected world we're all a part of now, where identity isn't just about the one place you were born. All right, first up, ethnicity. Now, this isn't about biology or genetics. It's really a subjective belief, a feeling of shared roots. It's that powerful sense of us that comes from shared customs or language or history. It's not fixed, it's fluid, and it's super personal.
Now, a nation is a little different. It takes that idea of a shared cultural identity and connects it to politics and, land. It's the belief that a specific group of people should have their own state with its own borders. So when you hear the word nationalist, that's the core idea, the belief that the cultural map and the political map should line up perfectly.
But here's the thing. In the world we live in today, those neat lines on the map are getting blurrier and blurrier. With globalization, migration, the internet, everything's connected. We have communities that stretch across borders and societies that are packed with different cultures. Those old, clean boundaries, they're constantly overlapping and being redrawn.
And all of this is changing how we think about citizenship. The traditional idea is pretty straightforward. Your duties and responsibilities stop at your country's border. But there's this newer, bigger idea called global citizenship, and it suggests that, hey, maybe our social contract extends to all of humanity. It completely reframes huge problems like climate change. Suddenly, it's not just my country's problem, it's a global responsibility that needs everyone to work together.
Okay, so the world is complex. We get it. But what does that mean for us day to day? What actual tools can we use to get through it all with a bit more empathy, a bit more understanding? How do we take all these big ideas and, actually do something with them?
Well, a really big piece of the answer lies in an approach to learning called Global Citizenship Education, or GCE for short. It's a framework that's really designed for the world we live in right now. The whole point is to help us tackle inequality and build up that sense of shared responsibility, for the planet and for each other.
And this right here is a perfect example of how GCE works. Instead of just looking at a culture through one lens, like history, you look at it from all the angles. You bring in sociology, art, literature, economics, all of it. Think about it. How does a country's music tell a totally different story from its political speeches? Each new perspective adds another layer, another piece to the puzzle. That's how you shatter a single story. You just keep adding more stories until you have something that looks a lot more like the truth.
Sometimes the most powerful tools are also the simplest. A huge part of this is just changing the way we talk to each other. It's about shifting from debate, where you're just trying to win, to dialogue. That means treating conversations like a shared investigation. It's about asking real questions and actually listening to the answers, not just planning what you're going to say next.
But look, this isn't all about looking at other people.
a massive piece of this puzzle is turning the lens back on ourselves. It requires some serious self-reflection. We've got to be brave enough to look at our own assumptions, our own hidden biases, and all those little mental shortcuts our brains love to take. And to help with that, researcher Vanessa Andreotti came up with this brilliant checklist she calls Heads Up. It points out 4 really common mental traps we can all fall into. So ask yourself, 1, am I looking for simple, easy answers to super complex problems? 2, am I just projecting my own feelings onto someone else's experience? 3, am I trying to help just because it makes me feel like a good person? And 4, am I treating another culture like it's something to be consumed, like a souvenir? Just recognizing these patterns in ourselves is a huge first step. Okay, so let's bring this all home. This is the real bottom line. How does all this stuff, breaking single stories, thinking about global identity, using these new tools, how does it actually help us build a better community? Right here, right now.
Well, for starters, it completely dismantles that toxic us versus them mentality. You know, the kind of thinking that's at the root of so much conflict. It helps us see that there is no one American story. There's no one Mexican story. There are millions of individual stories, and all of them together make up this big, beautiful, complicated whole.
And this fosters something with a really beautiful name, conviviality. It's basically the art of living together. And it's not always easy, it can be messy and hard, but it's so essential. It's not about pretending our differences don't exist, it's about building real relationships based on a genuine respect for those differences.
I love this metaphor to explain it. You know how people always talk about a melting pot, where everyone's differences are supposed to just melt away and become one thing? Well, think of a mosaic instead. In a mosaic, every single tile keeps its own unique color, its own unique shape. It doesn't disappear, and it's the way all those different individual pieces fit together that creates the beautiful, amazing pattern. That's what we're aiming for.
When it comes right down to it, this whole process, this whole journey is about one thing: building empathy. When we make the effort to challenge those single stories, when we actually stop and listen to people, we're doing more than just learning facts. We are literally expanding our ability to understand, to connect, and to care. And that is the bedrock. That's the foundation for building a world that's more just, more peaceful, and more connected for every single one of us. So, I'm going to leave you with a little challenge, a question to take with you. Think about your own life, the people you know, the places you've heard about. What's one single story you might be holding on to? And what's one small thing you could do just this week to try and see the bigger, more complicated, more beautiful picture? Thanks so much for joining me.